Hello guys, LJ here, and welcome to yet another review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the third film in the Friday the 13th franchise, Friday the 13th Part 3, 3D. So this is a 1982 film of approximately 95 minutes in length, and yes, it's directed yet again by Steve Miner, the same guy who directed Part 2. And with this being released in 1982, that means the first three films in the franchise were released on a regular yearly basis, with Part 1 being released in 1980, Part 2 in 1981, and this in 1982. But then that pattern stopped when the fourth part, Friday the 13th Part 4, came out in 1984. But that's for another review. Just letting you guys know, there is a spoiler alert on this video, as there will most likely be for the rest of my Friday the 13th reviews. And the reason for that, quite frankly, is just because I feel like I can't speak in depth on this film without ruining a couple things here and there. Just warning you. So you may have heard this is Part 3 3D. That is true, but unfortunately, seeing as I bought this Friday the 13th 4-movie collection used, it, alas, didn't come with the 3D glasses. So I can honestly say I have no idea what the 3D looks like, the 3D version. The nice thing is, when you put this movie in, it gives you an option to watch the 2D version or the 3D version, so I have obviously chose the 2D version. But despite watching it in 2D, you could still obviously see where it was meant to be in 3D, such as when a broom handle was thrust at your face, or when an arrow was shot at your face, you know, close-ups. It was pretty blatant. You could obviously tell what they were trying to do with the 3D during that craze in the 80s. Films. Oh, it's a third entry in a franchise? We'll just make it 3D. Friday the 13th, 3D. And whatever you say, either way, to this day, I am still not a sucker for 3D films. The only reason I bought this is, first of all, it came in a box set, and second of all, I can only find Part 3 in 3D anymore nowadays. You know? It would be pretty nice if they were to release a strictly 2D version of this film, Part 3, you know. I think that'd be a wise decision. Okay, I'm getting off topic here. So basically, this film starts off with the gruesome murders of two store owners by, who could it have been? Oh, Jason. At the end of Part 2 of the series, as you know, Ginny hit Jason in the shoulder with that machete. He bled and he fell over. He presumed he was dead. Well, he wasn't. So at the early stages of this film, you see him without even the bag on his face, so you get to see all his features in full glory. Somehow he recovered from that machete wound pretty quickly. And so I presume the events of Part 3 take place maybe a day or two after the events of Part 2. You are quickly acquainted with a band of teenagers who are heading to their friend Chris Higgins's lakefront property. You find out the property's called, appropriately enough, Higgins Haven, and they don't say, but I presume it's not far from Camp Crystal Lake. You know, with me just saying that, things aren't gonna turn out perfect. Someone's gonna die. As they're driving in their van to Higgins Haven, they meet this weird hobo lying in the middle of the street. And he warns them, oh, you're doomed, you're haunted, you're gonna die, prophesizing. He's basically the crazy Ralph of this film, so to speak. Seeing as crazy Ralph was killed in the second film, I mean, they need someone else for his role, right? Each of the characters have their very own distinct personalities, but perhaps one of my favorite characters in the whole film would have to be Shelley. He's basically this kind of weird, overweight kid. He plays many pranks to the dismay of his friends, and, you know, they're innocent pranks, he's just trying to fit in with the group. I think we can all relate to the character of Shelley in one way or another, seeing as throughout life we've had to fit in with a group of people, sometime or another. And just think of it this way, if Shelley hadn't come along for the ride, Jason wouldn't have found his iconic hockey mask. Yeah, you heard right, Jason got his hockey mask from Shelley. I mean, yes, maybe Jason didn't acquire it from Shelley willingly, maybe he had to pry it from Shelley's dead cold fingers, but he acquired it from Shelley nonetheless. And it doesn't really go into detail on how Jason obtains the mask. All you see in one scene is Shelley playing a prank while wearing the hockey mask in a wetsuit in the lake. And next thing you know, Shelley is killed, and then you see Jason wearing the hockey mask, so you can assume what went on. I'll admit, I had my mixed feelings about this film right off the bat. As the credits run in the beginning of the film, you have this weird, funky 80s synth playing, and you got funky 3D text thrown out at you. I had my doubts. The acting in this movie is by no means superb. At one point, you even have one of the main characters sitting down reading, and a drop of blood falls on her book, and she's just like, "Where did this drop of blood come from?" Okay, you didn't need to say that. There are some moments in this film that are so outrageous, they are funny. There's one moment in particular I remember. It's when Shelley and his one friend, they go to the gas station. They have some trouble with a bike gang. That part's pretty funny. Hey, it's weird, but it's entertaining, and that's what matters. I don't know if it's just because of the 3D that's newly implemented in this film, but it seems the deaths have gotten more brutal. There's more gore. There's blood, guts, and eyeballs flying everywhere. There's one moment where a member of the bicycle gang is killed by Jason with a pitchfork. But that's not my favorite death. My favorite deaths would have to be when the lady, and oh, sorry, I'm not good with names. The lady's trying to fish this guy's, Shelley's, wallet out of the lake. Jason comes up. The lady, thinking it's Shelley, is like, "Oh, come on, stop fooling around, Shelley." Jason takes this bow and arrow, harpoon gun, I'm not sure exactly what it was. He shoots it, hits the lady in the eyeball, she falls back and dies. And then there's one part where this guy's showing off to his girlfriend and he's walking up and down the halls on his hands. And let's just say Jason steps out from hiding and takes a machete, slashes the guy in the family jewels. It was so painful to watch. That was definitely the most brutal murder I've seen in this franchise as of yet. Richard Brooker, the actor who plays Jason in this film, okay, he ups the ante in this installment. It seems as soon as he puts on the hockey mask, he goes into this casual, quiet, flawless, cunning killer mode. It's awesome. The body count is pretty high, and as with all Friday the 13th films, the main characters are picked off one by one until one character is left standing. And that character is, drumroll please, Chris Higgins, the woman who owns the property they're staying on. How ironic. And earlier on in this film with her boyfriend, Chris goes into detail talking about how around 2 years before the events of this movie, Chris was attacked in the woods by Jason, and you don't know what really happened. She said she blacked out. But at one point in this film, when Jason is tracking down Chris, Jason does lift his hockey mask and show Chris his true face. Chris recognized Jason as the guy who attacked her in the woods 2 years earlier, and it gets intense. Chris Higgins does try to actually hang Jason by tying a rope around his neck and throwing him out of the top level of the barn. She's not successful. So she has to settle with taking an axe and hitting Jason in the front of the mask with it. He gets knocked out. You don't know if he's dead or not. With that business taken care of, she goes out onto the lake in a canoe, oddly resembling the events at the end of the first film, and a rotting body shoots out of the lake's depths and knocks Chris out of her canoe, also like the first film. This time around, the body is not that of Jason, but of Mrs. Voorhees. You know Mrs. Voorhees was killed. You know Chris must be dreaming, but hey, it gets you thinking. And the movie ends with Chris being taken away in a car by the police, mentally unstable, obviously. I mean, she's laughing to herself. It's not normal. Then the camera zooms in on Jason's motionless body. He has the axe through his mask. He's bleeding. Don't know if he's dead or alive. And that's about it about this film. Friday the 13th, Part 3. I was thoroughly impressed with it. Once the film began, let me just say I was not impressed whatsoever. I actually kind of disliked it. But as the movie went on, the body count mounted. You got to see Jason in action more. I did come to like it. It's definitely a worthy entry into the franchise by all means. And so I would have to give Friday the 13th Part 3 a 4.5 out of 5 just for the awkward moments and bad acting at some points. Still, very good score, very good movie. If you've not seen it yet, I heartily recommend you check it out. Hey, maybe not good as the first and second films, but still worth viewing. Seriously, check it out! Remember, Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy what you're seeing.
So, is Jason dead? Is he alive? Join me next time as I review Friday the 13th, the final chapter, the 4th entry in the Friday the 13th franchise.
See ya and take care.